you cannot be your best for others unless you're your best for yourself first. So you have to learn balance. Why do you want to be best for self? It's a great question to ask. If you want to be the best for yourself because it's all about you, then be honest about that.
The ability to be able to slow down, to be able to be self-aware, to me, and then go into that, it could be a game changer for a business or for life, because you kind of get rid of the clutter then.
But we're bringing this message that every single human is important and that each of us has influence. So we need to understand that influence and embrace it.
Hey, what's going on, friends? Welcome back to another episode of the Love Local Chicagoland podcast. Before I dive into my guest today, which I'm really excited to bring you this conversation, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor of this show, Royal Family Real Estate. Royal Hartwig is bringing the top real estate brokerage to the Northwest suburbs, and he's starting with Schaumburg. Royal, we really appreciate you allowing us to be able to help amplify voices of people that are doing really amazing things here in our local community. Today, my friends, I'm here with Brian Smith. Brian Smith is an author. He's an entrepreneur. He is a TED Talks keynote speaker with over 2 million views on his TED Talk. He's a firm believer in creating a positive influence, and that each of us were able to work on what's in here by slowing down, by putting in smart structures to our life. We're able to be able to live the best life possible, and we're able to show up the best for the people that are around us. You see, my friends, he's all of that, and he's a managing partner of IA Business Advisors, which helps you do that as a business so that you can live as a better business operator, but also a better life. But enough of me talking. Let me introduce you to Brian Smith. Welcome to the show, man. Thank
you so much. I really appreciate being here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation. Maybe a little nervous. I feel like in a humble way, like you bring so much knowledge to how us as humans could be able to like operate better. You know, from diving into your book already, from listening to your TED Talk, from knowing some members of your team with Greg, you bring a lot to the table, man. So this conversation to me is something I'm excited for selfishly. I think I'm going to learn and I'm going to grow through this conversation, but it's really for our audience because I think at the end of the day, we all want to slow down. We all want to put in smart decision-making processes so that we could live a more fruitful life while we're here on Earth. So with that being said, I got to just start and lead with like, what has you fired up right now with what you're doing and what's bringing passion to your life?
Yeah, I think for us, and you'll notice I always or almost always say us or we, because I am we. And that I think is what excites me the most is we are bringing this message to our area of influence, which is expanding amazingly fast because of our TEDx talk, because of our outreach. But we're bringing this message that every single human is important and that each of us has influence. And we need to understand that influence and embrace it. And through our messaging, we are seeing this expansion of this idea that we're just all important and we all matter. And if we don't like where we're at, it's okay. We can do something different. Mm-hmm. And empowering people on how to do that, when to do it. No, we don't tell them when, but helping them learn when to do it for themselves in this smart way that you talked about is so invigorating. But seeing the results has just got me really fired up because we actually see people employing what we're doing and embracing it and seeing and getting so much positive feedback.
Yeah, it's pretty beautiful. You're helping people become their best selves by slowing down in a fast-paced world, right? And I think it's always, you said something during our conversation, like time hasn't changed. It's just how we're doing it changes. So to be able to help implement those practices to help people do life better, like talk about a purpose, man. Like that's pretty beautiful. And we get short times here on this earth, but to be able to lead with purpose to not only get there yourself, but then help bring others up. So now that you do have a team to be able to help more people do this, in your book, I was kind of blown away about like your level of vulnerability. I think a true leader comes from like leading with vulnerability, leading with realness. If you can't be wrong as a leader, then you're probably not going to be much of a leader, I think, at the end of the day. But I like how you kind of come from that approach, and that you believe that we all have an influence, and it's up to each of us and how that influence is brought out into the world. In your TED Talk, you share that we're all ripples. Whether we smile at someone or stay silent, we leave a mark. That hit me very hard. Why is that idea of influence so important for you to understand?
Yeah, well, for that simple reason, everything we do has influence. I love context. So the vulnerability that you see that comes out in my writing, in my work, is to add context to what we're trying to do. And without context, people can assume, and assumption leads us sometimes to some very dangerous places, which, by the way, on itself is influence, right? But it is so important that we understand that every action we have and that we do is an influence. It's either an influence on us, so our inner thoughts have an influence on us. And if I smile at somebody, there's you can go to the internet and look up smiling at people on a bridge, and you'll see stories about how somebody was going to commit suicide, and it was a smile, or it was a friendly nod, or it was an acknowledgement that changed their mind. And those people went on to do things with their lives. Yet when you look back at that, the person who smiled or the person who acknowledged never knows it. The only person that knows it is the person it happened to, yet that influence still happened, and it was amazingly powerful. And I think we lose touch with just how powerful simple actions that we do as humans can have, and contextually what it can do and the ripple effect it may have. A day from now, a week from now, a year, or even many years. And in my TED Talk, I talk about the carpet cleaner who was there to play with my son, and how that one interaction changed the trajectory of my entire life, my professional life, my family's life. And that carpet cleaner to this day still doesn't know the influence he had.
Yeah. That's pretty beautiful to come at life from that approach, And I feel like, if this is my opinion, but I feel like we kind of went away from our front yards. We went away from conversations with people, and we kind of get stuck in here sometimes in our algorithm. But when we have our phones down, we're walking through our community, to be able to have the self-awareness to acknowledge other people, to smile and to say hello. We don't know what people are going through. Life is hard. We know that there's waves of life, right? And sometimes the waves are fun, and sometimes the waves are you're barely hanging on. And so when you have come from an approach of having a smile, or to open the door for somebody, or just a nice gesture like you're saying, I feel like that opens it up. If we kind of all led with that, like, what could our world look like? And to me, that excites me. Well, what we could do as humans if we just focused in on like being intentional. When you talked about intentionality throughout our conversations, and the importance of intentionality to be able to get the desired outcome, what does that mean to you?
Well, I think first it means slowing down and understanding where you're at in a moment. Why are you there? What are you there for? Who is it for? Is it just for you, or is it for others? What's the purpose? And it's part of our SMART foundation. And the nice part about SMART is that it does inherently slow us down. But when we're intentional, we inherently slow down and we self-analyze. Now, sometimes our intentionality leads to quick decisions and we can be impulsive, but the more we practice, the better we get. And the more we practice, if we really look at how being mindful or intentional with our thoughts, with our actions, we can see the mistakes that we've made, which I talk about a lot. And we can see how being impulsive and not being intentional led to those mistakes. And one of the best things we can do as humans is learn from our own mistakes, but they still need to be contextualized. So that also means that when we're thinking about getting better, we have to be intentional about that too.
What are some what's some advice I should say that you have around being able to slow down? Because right now the world is going fast. The time's still the same, but the world is going faster because of how these phones help us operate. We could also, you have notifications going off. You have all these distractions that are coming at you. You know, I talk in my family to my wife, like I don't have any more bandwidth. I'm like a computer. Like there's too much coming into me for me to produce that same amount out. What advice do you have to people that maybe are struggling to be able to slow down because of those things or other things, and maybe even some best practices?
Yeah, I think if you're in a place where you feel overwhelmed, taking a step back, getting, above yourself, getting 15, 30,000 foot view of your life, write out a journal of everything, all of your responsibilities, all of the things that you've committed to, all of the things that you react to, and look at it on a single sheet of paper, or maybe it's more than a single sheet of paper, but it adds context to the chaos. And when we look at that as humans, many of us actually begin to understand why we feel that way. And it's from that foundation that you can start to ask yourself questions. Is that important? Is that not important? Is it leading me to a place I want to be? Is it a requirement for my job? And if it is a requirement for my job, how did I allow my area of influence in my job get me into a position where it's overwhelming me? What approach can I take to make that better? And you start asking yourself questions, but when the issues that you're facing are in front of you and you're asking questions about them, for me, it's the best way to lead somebody to just have some clarity. Where you go from there is dependent on your ability to be organized, your ability to get help. You might need a tool like a notifications to slow you down and stop you. You might need a timer or an alarm to have you remember things. You might need a calendar. You might need a digitized calendar, or you might need a manual calendar. I will tell you, in our team, we don't have a standard. The standard is what best works for the individual. The only standard we have is for project management. But for individual schedule management, it's whatever the individual needs. Because what you need to stay organized and support your life might be different than what I need. It's just like behavior. It's like personality. So that's where I would start. And from there, you will build clarity. And from there, ideas will start to happen.
Then you put them in like one step at a time,
yes.
Right? It's slowing down's hard, I think, for many of us. And there's a lot of self-help things that are out there. What I like about what I'm hearing from you, whether it's here now or whether it's here, is like, do what's best for you. It's not just one way. It's like, what gets you that result for you?
Yes.
And do that.
Yes.
To me, that's pretty powerful. Especially, we don't all have to do it the same. It's like, well, do we get it done? And do we execute it to the best of our abilities because these systems work for us?
Yeah, there's this underlying phobia about, if I'm best for myself, am I being selfish? Am I being narcissistic? And you can be, by the way, and many people are. There are a lot of selfish and narcissistic people in the world. However, you cannot be your best for others unless you're your best for yourself first. So you have to learn balance. So talk about intentionality. Why do you want to be best for self? It's a great question to ask. If you want to be the best for yourself because it's all about you, then be honest about that. It's in our society, you can still do that and it'll serve you. You may have less friends, you may have less opportunities, you may find yourself alone a lot, but it will still serve you. And you get to define that. But when you are your best self for others, you get both.
Yeah.
You get to define both, and you get to give when you want to give, and you get to give in ways that can be very fulfilling to you as an individual. But you should define what that is. And what we say is just be honest with yourself about it first, and then also be honest with others about it. And that brings clarity, not just clarity for you, but it brings clarity for the people in your sphere of influence, which is really important. Look, we all have friends who and associates who irk us, right? We either choose to keep them around and accept them with the issues they have, or we choose not to. But most of us choose to keep them because we understand them. They're in context for us. They're part of our lives in a way that has value to us and to them. So that is proof that these differences, these nuances, even some of them very extreme, still work out. So, embrace your individuality and lean into it. But remember that the minute that you start to do things for others before you take care of yourself, you're going down a path where you're going to run out of bandwidth for yourself. You're going to run out of willpower, and things are going to start to not work.
You don't know what feeds your soul. It's going to be really hard to help others do that.
Yes.
And get to that. To me, as I hear you talk, I think of a couple of things sometimes that stops us humans. One's the grace within ourselves of like, oh, I have to be right, or I have to do it this way, or I have to do that, instead of being like, oh, I really feel this way. And it is different than the group, but this is how I feel, and being confident in that. And I think you have transparency within your team to be like, be you, and you do that, and you help others implement that into their business is the best way to be able to build teams. It's to me, because then you'll always get that best of that individual. May not always get the best of it, but you'll get that best of that individual more often if you're allowing them to be free within themselves, but to then just stay within this framework or structure. But at the end of the day, if the results are the same, they're the same. But don't compare, offer yourself grace, I think is so key. You always haven't slowed down. You learn to slow down through struggle, right?
Yeah.
From hearing you. Can you explain to me and to our listeners, how has slowing down changed the way that you lead overall? And maybe give us a picture into how you led before.
Yeah. So, and I will tell you, life's a challenge, and slowing down is a challenge. Even, I write about this. It's the biggest chapter in our first book. It is also the biggest challenge. We want to do more. I have huge ambitions for myself and for our organization, which makes me feel like I have to go harder and faster and more constantly, right? But it doesn't serve the mission. It doesn't serve the teams. In the past, I was a bull in a china shop. In fact, that's the picture in our book of that chapter, is a bull in a china shop. And that's the way people viewed me. I would walk into situations and say what was on my mind without thought. I would do what I felt like doing without thought. I would make decisions without a lot of context or a lot of thought. And I made a lot of mistakes. I lost a lot of friends. I lost business partners. I created issues for myself and issues for my family that I've shared openly. It all hits home when you start to have to look in the mirror and ask yourself, why did that client leave? Why did that partner leave? Why do I have to rebuild this part of my company again? Why do I have to rebuild this relationship again? And for me, I was fortunate to have good mentors around me that made me stop and think. And I talk about some of them, and just, some of it you pick up on your own, some of it you read in books, and one day it just clicked. And, the experiences of life teach us the best. Unfortunately, for a lot of us, I wish it wasn't this way, we have to learn on our own. Self-help books are supposed to help take us there. We've tried to write books that don't take you there as a lesson, they take you there as a story. So hopefully that you can contextualize my experiences to one you had, and then build a bridge to that and go, wow, I understand, and come to your own conclusion. I don't want to come to that conclusion.
That's what it's about.
Does that help?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think that's kind of like, to me, like a key of life is to be able to come at things from that perspective. And I think when we do, and we put a good framework into place, with what we'll talk about here next, with just the SMART framework. You talked about it's for business, but it's also for life. And as I get deeper into your books, as I get deeper into the knowledge that you bring through the content that you've done, obviously with the TED Talks, to me, it's like, well, life and business could be as one. It's about making good decisions for both so you could live joyful at the end of the day. So we talked about slowing down and the importance of that. To me, that's very much a foundational piece to this. Let's talk about the SMART framework that you've implemented and that you help implement for your clients at IA.
Yeah, so, we didn't invent SMART. SMART was invented back in the early 80s by some professors.
You made it your own, though.
We have made it our own, yes, very much so, actually. But it was invented in the 80s as a way to create goals. Okay. And the idea is that if you're going to have a goal, be specific about that goal. Make sure that you can measure that goal. Make sure that that goal is attainable, that it's relevant or realistic, and that it's timely. This is the right time. Also, that you have the time to do what's needed to reach the goal. Early in my career, about 2002, 2003, we added SMART to our leadership training program just to set goals. I mean, we just really adopted it as a goal setting program. And a lot of management programs adopt SMART goals. It's taught in school. However, as we applied our leadership and our management philosophies to our clients, we learned that SMART goals were just this place. Yeah, they were SMART, but they were way over there. And SMART didn't tell you how to get there. And I started to think, well, the path to SMART is SMART. If you're specific about building your tactics to reach that goal, you now create these objectives. And by the way, these objectives are milestones. And if we think about what project management is, you set up your objectives, you identify your tasks, you measure them along the way. And if you can do that, they become attainable and realistic. And if you understand timeliness and you share that with everybody, all of a sudden, everybody's swimming in the same lane, going the same direction. Digression stops.
You click as a team.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we built our SMART management program around SMART. And then we built our communication programs around SMART. And then we built life around SMART. And now the evolution of SMART for us is that everything is SMART. How we communicate, how we build strategies, how we build tactics, how we approach exceptions. And what SMART does is it feeds the slowdown moment. Because if you and I are in a conversation and we lack context, I can look at you and say, we're just not being smart. And you can go, oh, well, we're missing specificity, measurement, attainability, relativity, or timeliness. And if you don't know what it is, you can say, well, which part are we missing? And I can say, we're not being specific enough, or we don't have enough measurements. We need more KPIs. We need more understanding of money or time or people, or I don't know, this is attainable.
Helps you get to the root of the problem
very quickly.
Yeah, because you look at it's one of the problems is most likely within the bucket of SMART.
Always. I have yet in my career found an issue that couldn't be solved by thinking SMART. Not one anywhere. I don't care which industry, what continent, what client. Everything that we face in our work can be addressed with a SMART thought process. And I love it because we have built and thankfully we own this whole SMART management program now. And I get to, as part of our influence mission, bring that to the world. And it's really exciting.
Yeah, it definitely sounds exciting. As I hear you talk, I think of like the business owners, that being a business owner is hard. And sometimes it goes back to the waves of life. Sometimes there's ruts, there's things that you get into. But I think about the SMART framework and how if implemented in your business with the help of coaching and consulting could really help you go to that next level, maybe even get out of your funk, because you could put it within those buckets and you could identify your problems. Or sometimes in my experience, when I'm in a funk, everything's too cloudy for me to be able to actually just pinpoint what that thing could be. So maybe other entrepreneurs that have felt that way over time, how can SMART framework help someone who feels stuck or overwhelmed?
Well, first thing you can do is if they embrace what it means, be specific, be measurable, challenge attainability, be realistic and relevant, and be timely. And you look at the problem that you're having and say, okay, what is my specific problem? What can I measure? Okay. And once you ask those two questions, those two parts of SMART drive, by the way, everything else. Okay. Specificity and measurement will lead you to attainability, if it's real or not, if it's relevant or not, and if it can be time bound or not. You have to be specific and measurable first. So if you apply SMART to whatever issue you're facing and just start asking the who's, the what's, the why's, the when's, the where's, and challenge yourself to fill in SMART. What are all my specifics? What are all the measurements that are important? Attainability, relativity, and timeliness will just fall out in front of you. And then if it's not attainable, you can ask why. What do I need? You can get to root cause. You can start applying SMART to a solution, and you can use SMART to find a path to make it attainable. You can use SMART to find a path to realistic or relativity. And you can also apply SMART to finding the timeliness of it. Maybe you need more people. Maybe you need more money. Maybe you need more time. Maybe you need more knowledge, but it will lead you to a SMART solution, which then can reset to setting a SMART objective, creating SMART strategies. And if you do that along the way, you will see that it becomes this really amazing, efficient way of doing business. And the whole team, when they do it, it really creates, like it has for us and for our clients, these paths to amazing success.
I feel like it would put you around, not literally, but it puts you around a table where best ideas went out with if it's specific and measurable and you could all be on the same team or same page as a team, you're going to go a lot further faster, right? Yes. At the end of the day, which is powerful.
Yeah, it's humbling and also exciting that we have clients. You walk into their conference room and their wall, it says SMART. It just says it in big giant letters. And it's a conversation starter, but it's also a reminder. You can walk through a lot of our clients' offices and there's these little placards that we create that just say SMART, and it defines what each one is. And it's right on the wall, right by their workstations. Greg will share that she writes emails and she has a little sticker on her computer that says be smart about how she writes her emails. And it is the foundation of everything that we do. And it helps us to not only slow down, but to do things in a way that creates enough context to move things forward on a comfortable pace for everybody, not just for me, but for everybody.
It goes back to you're starting with slowing down and get into the moment, and then you're going into that framework. So to me, I think I've tried that framework before without the coaching and consulting. I'm like, I could do this specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely. I could do that, no problem. But then I didn't slow down. So then I didn't actually put in the work to actually go into what was specific, measurable, et cetera. So the ability to be able to slow down, to be able to be self-aware, to me, and then go into that, it could be a game changer for a business or for life, because you kind of get rid of the clutter then at the end of the day, and you're just focusing on what matters. And when you get your team on that same page, game on.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of want to change and evolve the conversations to, to me, I shared this earlier on, but I love how you share your struggles and that I think if by understanding your struggles, I think for us out there understands that, well, we have our own struggles too, and we too can overcome. But you've been open about your past failures, and also that you grew up poor, and you made a lot of mistakes along the way. How do you think influence becomes more powerful for you, having that as a foundation when we lead with humility and honesty?
Well, I think influence becomes more influential. I really don't like the word powerful.
Yeah.
I think, but I do like it becomes more influential because contextually people can relate. And I think as humans, we like to be able to relate.
Yeah.
When we feel like we're being talked over or not communicated with clearly, or we're being taken for granted, or we're being put in a bucket, I think it degrades what we're hearing. I think we might still listen to it, but it doesn't have the impact of, there's empathy in humbleness. There's empathy in sharing. It's inherent, and there's also empathy from the people hearing it, empathy for themselves, first of all, because they're hearing a story about my life and they're building a bridge in their life to it. And oftentimes what we hear is there's this instant empathy for themselves.
Yeah.
Not for me, for themselves, because I have this, I didn't share that experience, but I have a shared experience. And I'm not the only one that went through something like that. I can be less critical of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I can be less.
That's that grace piece, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's the power. That's the influence that we hope that we bring through being contextual and sharing my history, which in a lot of cases is not really easy to do. It's upset a lot of people. In fact, a lot of the stories I've shared upset people because that I would be so open and share them. It's like, well, I would rather be embarrassed about some of those things than not be able to contextualize for people in general and help them to be better. I think there's more influence,
selfless,
more positivity. Approach, yeah, I don't know how selfless it is. Look, history happened. It is what it is. You can either sweep it under the rug, you can either try to change it, which is not good, or you can embrace it for something positive. And I would be a hypocrite if I didn't embrace that positive and responsible influence. It's the foundation of what our mission is. It's the name of our books. So I need to embrace that to a fault. And it's not, I appreciate the empathy, but that's not what it was for. Yeah. I want people to have a takeaway, to be able to embrace themselves and come to the realization that regardless of where you've been, you have an opportunity to have positive influence and be responsible with your influence going forward.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkably said. I give an example of myself. There's once a leader that I've always had a lot of energy. The people that know me know that I still do, but I would be more of like the iron fist type leader. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and too many to count on this show. Over time, through learning, through books, through mentorship, through friendships, through community of people that I could learn from, it's helped me get to a place where I agree with you that if we share our own vulnerabilities, for one, it kind of, what are you going to get on us? Like, we're just us, but what it does for the other people, I think that was really insightful. I don't know if I ever looked at it quite like that, but this is my experience, but when who cares, let it out. We're going to learn from our mistakes. We're going to grow, and we put it out into the world with the hope and the know of somebody might hear this and be able to work out and get themselves right, because when I was there, I wasn't right. and now I feel better about life. I feel better about business. I feel better in general. To want others to be able to feel that way for themselves is kind of what life's all about, right? Yeah. And I think for me, it's helped me shape myself as a leader to help like I've people trust me more quicker now. They're like, they know I'm not some jerk or some fly by the seat of the pants. I'm going to be real, even if I'm the one that's making that mistake, which has helped. During our conversation, we've talked about building a better tomorrow. You mentioned IA is not just a business, not just a company, but it's a movement. What kind of movement are you trying to build?
Yeah, well, it's three parts. It's, we want to introduce and build this smart framework for life. Mm-hmm. Personal, business, it brings balance. I think that balance comes from being smart with yourself and then smart in your area of influence, whatever that is. Two is, challenge yourself to be two things, positive and responsible. When you're smart, you slow down. When you slow down, you can identify the things in your life that aren't positive and aren't responsible. And then you can come up with a smart way to make them positive and responsible. And by the way, not all things that are positive are responsible, and not all things that are responsible are positive. Mm-hmm. Tough love is what it is. And it's not always positive to the person receiving it, but it will lead to positivity and responsibility later. I feel like that way right now. So, when we're smart, we can actually understand these things. We can put them into better context and we can appreciate them. We might not like them, but we can appreciate them. And we can get through those periods you talked about earlier, these waves, these peaks and these valleys that we go through, highs and lows. We can get through those better if we're being smart and if our mission is positivity and responsibility with our influence.
Yeah, no, well said. This is, in your opinion, I think you're doing something pretty remarkable at IA. And although you've been in business for a while, knowing Greg, getting to know you, I feel like y'all are just getting started, which is exciting to see from the outside in. The world is changing very fast right now. As we said, we got the phones that are at our just right in our pockets. We have artificial intelligence. We have blockchain. We have the social media evolution. We have the political craziness and the division that's there. In your opinion, and advice to our audience, how do we stay grounded and hopeful in times like this?
Wow. Well, one is stop listening to the media without doing your own, slowing down, being smart about what you hear and challenging what you hear in a smart way. Mm-hmm. We are fed talking points that have bias, and the bias comes, it doesn't matter who, and bias is okay. We have whole chapters on bias.
Just be aware of it, right?
Be aware of it. Understand why it's there. Originally, bias is a human trait that is designed to protect us. It is turned into something much more complex and much more difficult to manage. But understand those first. Know that in the end, I truly believe, especially for Americans, that America is going to be okay. It's not one of those too big to fail statements, but we are a very big society that is built on these core values, and 80% of us live in those core values still. The 10% on both ends are the ones that are pulling at us and trying to influence those core values and nuancely change them in a way that may or may not be valuable. If the 80% in the middle approach that from a smart perspective and challenge those changes and ensure that they're not just change, but they are also improvement for us as humans, but also for us as a society, then the good will fall out and the bad will go away. It won't last. Mm-hmm. And I believe that with everything that I have. And I think if we apply smart, if we can teach more people to do that and challenge with that smart framework, we'll see more and better decisions that are more positive and responsible. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a rough road. By the way, freedom is messy.
And it always has been.
And it never won't be messy.
Yes.
There will always be the sad part of freedom. We're never going to get rid of that. I hate that we have to accept that it's messy, but the alternative is, I believe, much worse.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a crazy time. And I think to be able to take yourself out, kind of like we said earlier, take yourself out of like where you're at and get that 30,000 overview. You could see we're in something much larger than just us individually, and even us collectively here as United States citizens. It's a cycle of history that could cause stress, that could cause chaos. Some of it's designed, some of it's built just because of us as humans. And you touched a little bit on this in that last one, but just to kind of close it up home for us is how do we use frameworks like SMART to stay clear-headed in chaos and still lead with purpose, so that we could go back to the segment before about like we could leave this world better than we found it.
Yeah, well, one thing is if what's going on, let's say nationally, let's start there. And I believe that this show is like a foundation for what I'm about to say. Love local, things that go on nationally, when you let these talking points, these things that you hear influence you and turn your day into a bad day, have you start making decisions about your life or the lives around you because of what you hear is going on in New York City or in California. When you start to allow those things to influence you, you're not being very smart. When you pull back and ask yourself, how does this influence me here, right now, in my life, in my area of influence? What is going to happen to me if I focus on that talking point or this talking point or this issue? And if I don't, and look, if you're just getting yourself worked up and it makes you feel good, be honest about that. It gets you worked up and it makes you feel good to get worked up, because some of us feed into that. But if you really slow down and say, how is it going to be smart? How is it going to be beneficial to me in my area of influence? And if it's not, just let it go. Okay? Don't keep your finger off the pulse. You can check in once in a while. How's that progressing? How did that decision turn out? Did that decision lead to anything locally, regionally? Is the government doing things that are moving into my areas of influence? And if they are, what does that mean contextually to me? But these are all smart questions. And if you apply SMART to that mindset and you disconnect yourself from the stuff that just doesn't matter, really, it doesn't matter. Then I think that what you'll see is that these local communities will begin to build up, and that 80% in the middle will start to have a bigger voice, because those smaller communities will perform better, and what they're connected to will perform better, and it will grow in a positive way.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of movements out there to go local, to bring your area of influence to your local sphere of influence, and start there and see if we can't start in our neighborhood, our town, our county, our state, right?
Yeah.
And, I think if we continue to do that and rinse, repeat, and we're smart about it along the way, that we will continue to see more positive things happening and more responsible things happening at the same time.
Yeah, it's I believe in that too, and I think that's why I feel so passionate about building Love Local, because over the last 5 years, I've heard so many stories from people from all different walks of life, and I saw so much commonalities within our stories. And at the same time, when you go on to social media, or even if you have some conversations in the community, you see how divided we are. But if we focus in on the division, and just the division, we're going to miss out on the true beauty that we have this opportunity to be stronger together in our local community by coming together, by getting to know each other, by understanding each other's biases, by understanding and having empathy for one another's stories. I think if we could do that with the goal to want to build a win-win with each other, what you're saying could happen is very much going to happen, and this could be short-lived. And my hope is that as community members, we can rise up and we could, we could come together. A show I had on just recently, we were talking about mental health, and I was talking about, as a community members, it's kind of time for us to roll up our sleeves. It's time for us to get out of our algorithm and go out into our community. Doesn't mean you have to do everything, but what's passionate to you? What's your individual advantage to go out there into the world? Because I can promise you're not going to be a part of the solution from behind that phone, just that phone. It's more about the boots on the ground here in our local community with people coming together that I want to make our community stronger. It's the only way we're going to do it is if we work together and we all learn and unlearn from each other, and we lead with kindness and love through it. So thanks for saying it like you did. It's definitely very much a feeling of mine too. As we get to close up, a couple more questions for you. The future is bright with IA. We know that. You're writing more. You're still creating and evolving more. What has you excited the most as you look to the future?
Well, I think one of the things we just came off topic is local. I was born here in the area. I was born in Elgin, raised in West Dundee. I have come full circle. I didn't start IA here. I started it in Colorado 29 years ago, but we are presently building roots back into the community that I was born into.
That's awesome.
Our new headquarters is literally in a building that I was more or less born into. My father was the manager of the business in that building when I was born. So, and now beautiful. My corporate headquarters is in that building. So it's in West Dundee. It's exciting. So that's in our future. Our SMART initiative has really got me excited. We are adding smart companies and smart integrators to our portfolio in our area of influence globally. And we are seeing our influence expand globally while still focusing on this local initiative we have. And by the way, when we grow globally through local initiatives. For example, next week I will be not next week, the week after, I'll be in Klamath Falls, Oregon, where I moved to with my family. That is a very small community that we have a lot of influence in. We build our company through local influence. We always have. And that's how we've expanded globally. But it always started in a community. And then our influence message is our global message. I mean, our books are published in 30 or 40 languages. I get to travel around the world and speak around the world to groups of people from 5 people to 500 people. And that message is very consistent. It's your influence matters, and be as positive and responsible with it as you can. And, I teach that through talking about my own story and how influenced me and others, and so people can contextualize it. And that's what gets me up every day, and keeps me writing, keeps me interviewing, keeps me advising, and keeps me coaching. And then I get to interact with my clients. I still get in the weeds with clients. I love it. I will never step away from being able to fly somewhere or go to yesterday I was at a business with a team, and I got to sit in the conference room with them and just participate. And being part of their team for an hour is invigorating. And seeing them come to the realization of what their influence is through a little guidance and watching them grow in an hour is enough to keep me going back for the rest of my life.
Sounds like it fires you up.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and it trickles on to everything else that you do. I love your local approach and that you've taken it global, because I think slowing down and really working on making smart decisions and using the framework and having people around you that can help you stick to those guns can help change lives, not just through business and creating wealth and all the other stuff and impact that businesses can do within the world, but it can also help people live better lives. So I appreciate you being on the show today. If somebody's looking to be able to connect with you, or IA Business Advisors, how can they do that?
Yeah, I mean, top level, go to iabusinessadvisors.com. It's our website. Everything we have is there. There's a connection to the I and Team series, which is all of our books and all of our thought and leadership management. And then through IA's website is everything about SMART and what we do as an advising organization. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or on Instagram. Those are really the places where I message the most consistently.
You just got to 10,000 followers on Instagram. Is that what I saw?
Yeah, so we got to 22,000 for the I and Team series, and I just got to 10,000 personally.
Congratulations.
And
That's awesome.
I mostly post things about what we just talked about today. I don't really fill it with a lot of silly things. I like to be mindful and intentional about what I post and provide people with something to get them through a moment, get them through a day, get them through a week.
That's beautiful. And I think that's why you're 10,000 followers and still growing. And great job on the I and Team series. You get to 22,000 followers is no easy feat. So you're doing something right. And you're creating positive ripples in the world all over the place with the people that you're helping lead and coach. So appreciate you being on the show today. And thanks for giving us the insightful conversation.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. So my friends, it's time maybe we slow down. We put smart frameworks into place and we build a better tomorrow. What do you think? World's kind of a hot mess, as we talked about. It is what it is, and we don't have control over a lot of it. But what we do have control over is what we could do here locally. And together, I think if we came out with the approach to build win-wins, we put smart frameworks into place, we allowed ourselves to slow down, we could change the world right here in our local community. My friends, thanks for watching. Go check out Brian and IA Business Advisors. They're doing really, really great things with their movement that they're creating, that they're calling a business. My friends, support local, love local. We're stronger together. Peace.